of professional contacts.
And the RBA's fears of a COVID property crash. Internal documents reveal why the central bank wanted the real estate market shut down. Today's jump in the unemployment figures has taken the official jobless rate to 7.1%, its highest in nearly 2 decades. Almost 250,000 jobs were lost last month, which means more than 800,000 jobs have gone since March, despite billions of dollars in government income support. And again, women and young people are the biggest casualties. The government says the surge is evidence of the hardship facing Australians and it's focused on getting people back to work. More from finance correspondent Philip Lasker.
There's no glossing over the harsh reality faced by millions of Australians when the lockdown struck in March.
In about 2 or 3 weeks, my entire year was cancelled.
Can't remember the last time I got my makeup done.
The only thing between makeup artist Samantha Lauren and unemployment is JobKeeper.
The scariest part is nobody really knows how long something like this will last.
Also scary are the numbers. The participation rate dived to a near 20-year low as a massive number of people simply gave up and left the jobs market altogether. Since March, it's women who've left the jobs market in greater numbers than men. The unemployment rate would be much worse if people hadn't given up the search for work or JobKeeper didn't exist. Some estimates are as high as 14%. Youth unemployment jumped to its highest level in nearly 23 years. Most of the jobs lost in May were part-time, women accounting for more than half the work disappearing. Health issues and IT security concerns working from home cost Sonia Marcon her part-time job. Even though her partner has kept his full-time job, the pressure is still on.
I'm stressed about money coming into the household. I'm stressed about losing any kind of professional contacts.
The good news is that as restrictions are eased, activity is lifting, but many people are still desperate for work, and some companies and customers are exploiting that.
I've spoken to some artists who have been offered a quarter of what they would be paid for a job in hopes that because of the desperate times that they will take the huge pay cut.
My whole working life right now is completely unknown.
Uncertainty driving desperation.
Philip Lasker there. Small businesses employ 44% of Australian workers, or 2.2 million people. With predictions 1 in 6 small businesses won't survive the economic fallout of COVID-19, more job losses could be on the way. I spoke to the Council of Small Business Organisations CEO, Peter Strong. Peter Strong, welcome to The Business.
Thank you.
Peter, today's unemployment figure has risen yet again. What do those numbers tell you about how small business operators are faring?
Well, it says, I think we all know that they're faring, some of them are faring, it's very difficult for them. There's some businesses, especially out there in the suburbs, who are going okay because people are in the suburbs and not going to work, etc. So they've been doing okay. But a lot of businesses aren't. Panel beaters haven't been doing well because nobody's been driving. We know service stations haven't been selling as much petrol because nobody's been driving again. We're hearing in different areas that even construction has taken a hit, certainly retail, and of course those involved in tourism and hospitality are struggling very much. So there's no surprise in this, and we always stress this isn't bad economics from a big company that's gone bankrupt or a bad treasurer or whatever. This is basically the result of a virus and a result of something that's been very difficult to deal with, and we're going to see more of it probably over the next 12 months.
Some people who watch these figures very closely have estimated that 1 in 6 businesses won't survive this economic crisis. Do you agree with a call like that?
Well, 1 in 6 is high. I remember the OECD came out in March sometime and talked about a similar figure. We've had a look at it and said we thought it was going to be around 200,000, which is still an awful lot of businesses, except we need to remember a lot of them are going to be sole traders, and that's still bad if you're a sole trader, but it doesn't involve employees with them. But there are certainly, without a doubt, coffee shops, restaurants and those in tourism that will not reopen. Or if they do reopen, they'll probably close because they'll find it doesn't work. So We have a lot of pain in front of us, and what we've got to do is make sure that that pain is managed. One of the best ways of doing that, and we've got a campaign ourselves coming up on that, is to have people understand why it's so important to go back and support small businesses, whether they be retail, hospitality, whether it be the panel beater or the bookkeeper.
The health crisis hasn't been as bad as what was initially feared, and we are starting to see certain sectors of the economy come back to obviously not levels that they were before, but we're starting to see some growth again, or some confidence again. Are you hearing that from your members as well? Are they feeling confident about the future?
The worst case scenario has not occurred. So we're feeling better about it, but I've got to say, nobody's closed their eyes to the facts here that there will be increased unemployment. There will be some industry sectors that suffer. We're working very closely with governments, state and federal governments at all levels, talking to them about which sectors need support and what sort of support those sectors need. And the other really big issue for us is saying to business people out there, if you're going to close, if you can't see a future, talk to your accountant, talk to your supporters, talk to your industry association, because we want you to close properly. We want you to close so you don't go bankrupt. We want you to close so your mental health isn't affected. And then you can reopen again in a year's time when things get better. And that's the best thing for your employees as well. It's not good for them to lose their job. It's not good for that business person to close their business. But let's do it in a way so you can reopen again as soon as you can. That's so important that the closures happen in a coherent and healthy way, so that the people don't suffer as much as they might, and so they can reopen.
The September deadline is looming when various stimulus runs dry. Loan exceptions also will end. Are members concerned about that time frame? Are you looking for more from the government?
Well, we are talking to the government, and talking about looking for more, it seems an odd thing to do when we've got so much. So what we're saying to the government is, yes, there's some areas that will need to continue to be supported, and the government has said that. And there's other areas that might not need to be supported in the same way. And so talk to us, talk to the industry association so we can work with you on this, because we know the word the cliff is coming, and all my members hate saying it. They all say it and they say, I hate saying this word, but there is a cliff. And we do know that in some sectors when JobKeeper ceases to operate, there is going to be a lot of people that are put out of work, and there's going to be some businesses closed. So we're quite apprehensive about it, but not in a panicking way in any way, shape or form, because we know the governments have performed very well and they are in deep dialogue with us about how we manage that.
Peter Strong, good to talk to you.
Thank you.
And it's not just the impact on jobs and business that has dented confidence and hurt hip pockets. Australia's central bank considered asking the government to shut down the real estate industry at the height of the COVID-19 crisis to prevent perceptions of a crash in the housing market. Previously, secret documents revealed the Reserve Bank has a far gloomier view of construction and housing than it's been telling the public. This exclusive report from Daniel Ziffer.
What our central bank tells us about the housing market and what it thinks are starkly different. Secret documents from inside the Reserve Bank suggest house prices could fall up to 15%. And they were so concerned about perceptions of a market crash, they considered shutting down the entire real estate industry. As the coronavirus crushed the economy, the bank looked at the housing market and considered doing what the stock market does in times of panic: halt trading. In April, economists discussed getting the federal government to pause the selling of many homes.
It could indeed be wise to recommend that the government temporarily halt all sales of established dwellings. If people start mistakenly thinking that we're experiencing a housing market crash, it's not going to help things.
They didn't want to see panic in the housing market, but when you actually look at their fundamental concern, there was panic within the Reserve Bank of Australia.
Minutes of the bank's board meeting last month, released publicly, talk about concern in the construction industry and the housing market. But inside the bank, the warnings were clear and severe. Notes prepared for Assistant Governor Lucy Ellis make it plain.
Anything that hadn't already been started has been deferred. Contracts are being cancelled, early stage buyer interest is very weak, and the pipeline is emptying.
A day before the meeting, more stern warnings inside the bank of slumping demand, sharp falls in sales and a rise in contract cancellations.
I am quite concerned that we're getting this public opinion from the RBA and then this quite differing opinion internally.
There are billions of dollars tied up in housing and millions of jobs in real estate and construction. These classified documents, obtained using the Freedom of Information process, tell us about the central bank's deep concern and dim view of the market. More difficult truths for the economy.
NEWSThe reporting. To the markets, which shed about $16 billion in value today. The disappointing jobs figures added to the losses. The All Ordinaries ended 0.9% lower. And the Australian dollar is worth 68.65 US cents. Julia Lee from Berman Invest joined me via Skype. Julia, the market recovered some of its losses after we had those less than desired jobs numbers late this morning.
Rachel, the market was always going to have a weak start after a negative lead from Wall Street. But after those terrible May job numbers, we took another leg down and the Aussie share market at one stage down by 1.5%. Worse economic numbers means that we are likely to have lower interest rates for longer, and that's bad news for the banking space, which took a big hit. But by the end of the session, it was better days, with the market up by 0.9% and the big four banks making a recovery as well.
Now it's the end of an era for Pendal and Westpac.
We've seen Westpac cutting its ties with Pendal. It was originally in 2002 that we saw Westpac taking over BT, which was later renamed Pendal Group. Really, it's because of the Royal Commission and highlighting, I guess, the vertically integrated model, which isn't so great for clients, which has seen a lot of the banks get rid of their asset management arms. So Westpac offloading its 9.5% stake in Pendal at a price of $5.98, and that's a discount to market price. So we did see Pendal shares coming under pressure today, down by 3%.
Looking at some individual stocks, companies like Temple & Webster and of course the buy now, pay later companies have really benefited from the COVID boom.
Well, we're in lockdown. There's not much we can do. We can't really spend on restaurants, bars, but it seems like what consumers are spending on is online shopping. Temple & Webster is Australia's largest online furniture and household store, and sales have been booming. In fact, in the second half, almost doubling as new customers who've never shopped online before bought at the store. Of course, that's great news for the buy now, pay later space as well. In fact, Afterpay shares hitting an all-time record high on the market. Sezzle shares were up by 12%, and Split It, which announced a deal with MasterCard, up more than 100% on the market today.
It's not just furniture and homewares people have been buying, they've also been taking care of their appearance.
Shaver shop. It must be all the men out there doing some manscaping, which has driven sales. In fact, in the financial year to date, up till the middle of June, sales up by 16%. And I guess as we are in lockdown, not only have men needed shavers, but women have looked at beauty tools as well, given beauty salons and hairdressers have been shut. So we have seen Shaver Shop coming out to say that it will be paying a special dividend, given it cancelled its interim dividend earlier on in the year, and we did see Shaver Shop shares up by more than 10% on the market today.
Now looking ahead, Julia, it's probably not going to be a great session in the US.
We have seen COVID-19 cases on the rise in the US, and there's fears that the situation there is getting worse, and that's really weighing